Hi, welcome to this week's edition of the MacIver Report. I'm Bill Osmulski, Content Director for the MacIver Institute. I'm joined, as always, by my colleague,
Mike Lucas, Policy Analyst.
Policy Analyst Mike Lucas. We're going to be talking about our top stories from the past week. Right now, it is Friday, February 7th, 2025. Ton happening this week, ton happening every week, so let's dive right into it. So we're going to start with the newest news first, the latest news first.
Yes.
We have the Wisconsin Supreme Court to decide Meagan Wolfe non-nomination on Friday. So today's Friday, that has been decided. But the background real quick is Meagan Wolfe is the administrator for the Wisconsin Elections Commission. And that is a appointment. She's appointed by the Wisconsin's Election Commission to that role, and needs to be confirmed by the Senate. The law states that it is a 4-year term. Her term expired at the end of the 2022 fiscal year. So on July 1st, 2023, she was no longer the administrator under state laws. But the Elections Commission thought that they would pull a little stunt, and they decided, well, we aren't nominating her. We aren't nominating anyone. There's no vacancy because she is currently in the position. So try to completely bypass the Senate confirmation process. The Senate sued and said, look, this is our role, advise and consent, and, this is a confirmation hearing. You need to give us a nominee to confirm. She's no longer in the role. Her term's expired. Went to the Supreme Court. And so what did the Supreme Court do? Well, today they've decided that, unanimously decided that term links really are meaningless for public officials in Wisconsin, that the state Senate's confirmation role is essentially just a formality. It's not real. Meagan Wolfe will continue as the WEC's administrator, essentially for as long as WEC wants her to, regardless of what the law says. They specifically said WEC does not have a duty to appoint a new administrator to replace Wolfe simply because her term has ended. Huh. Any thoughts on that one, Mike?
Yeah. It's interesting that the original lawsuit went to the Dane County Circuit Court, and the Circuit Court ruled in favor of the Senate Republicans and said the opposite of what the Supreme Court has said. And the Supreme Court said the Circuit Court was wrong.
Yeah, and it was unanimous. So, I mean, liberals and conservatives, don't, there were some people on that on my tweets saying, oh, those liberals in the Supreme Court. No, this was the entire Supreme Court. So, yeah.
Okay.
It happens. It happens. All right, so next story we got. How Democrats are using the Supreme Court race to rig the midterm elections. This was a Dan O'Donnell video. You can also see this one on Facebook. That's where this embed came from. Oh, there you go, Facebook Watch. So essentially, the idea with this one is that it's all what's her name? Crawford.
Yeah, Susan Crawford.
Susan Crawford, running for the open seat on the Wisconsin Supreme Court as the liberal candidate, and she's already told fundraisers that, hey, if I win this seat, I will be more than happy to overturn the congressional maps, and we can gerrymander those, so we could gerrymander a couple Republican congressmen out of their seats, and maybe the Democrats can take the U.S. House of Representatives. So that's a pretty compelling argument for fundraisers, but
yeah.
it does have, certain, certain concerns, from a voter and a constitutional perspective. You don't really want judges ruling on cases before cases even exist.
Yeah.
Or promising to vote a certain way on them. So Dan put together a video kind of going through that. A little bit more background on that, just real quick. Some of you out there might be saying, well, I thought the state Supreme Court already threw out the maps and Governor Evers got to draw them, and, hey, those were just for the state assembly and the state senate. They didn't touch the congressional maps. So that possibility is still out there. That somebody else come up and say, hey, these congressional districts are gerrymandered too. So.
Yeah, and they definitely want to change that because, the House is close. there's not a big,
Oh.
Republican majority in the House or the Senate for that matter, although Wisconsin's Senate is Democrats, so.
Yeah. Well, it's, and this is one of those things too where, I mean, people don't realize just, even if you got all those Republicans, let's say every single Republican in Congress, in the House and the Senate was completely on board with Trump's agenda, vote with him all the time. Again, you're only talking a couple seats advantage here. So, I mean, you lose a couple seats, you could be, that's all over. Democrats have control. Like, one of the things that I'm kind of paying attention to right now is Mitch McConnell. Every time he falls, there's a huge news story about it. There's a reason why there's a huge news story about this. People might not realize this because, a lot of times, people don't, you got special elections, but then you have, for some vacancies, you get a special election. For other vacancies, you get governors get to appoint replacements.
Yeah.
Mitch McConnell's from Kentucky. He's a Republican from Kentucky. Let's say he dies on the job. I'm sure there's people out there rooting for it. You shouldn't be. The governor of Kentucky is a Democrat.
Yeah.
That's going to be a Democrat if Mitch McConnell can't finish out his term, which I think goes for another 2 years.
Yeah.
So you should be praying every night, for Mitch McConnell's health and well-being.
Yes, you absolutely should. Them trying to change the congressional maps, though, sort of indicates that they're not too confident that the next midterm elections will really go in their favor. Typically you expect after a new administration comes into power that, the midterms sort of go the opposite way of whatever the president's party is pushing for this. Now, granted, it could be that they're just, trying to make absolutely sure that, they have those congressional seats for the Democrats. But, I mean, given that Trump's been in office for 2 weeks and folks on the left just can't keep up with everything that's going on, and it seems that Trump is becoming more and more and more popular as more and more crap is being revealed. The left is definitely concerned.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, maybe it's just Susan Crawford, trying to, make a good sales pitch for her. But, in my experience too, Democrats are always like unnecessarily paranoid when they don't have to be.
Oh.
Like, it's that communist complex where if there is one voice of opposition out there, you've got to crush it because you can't have anybody. Everything's got to be unanimous. I can't have anybody against me, not one person.
Yeah.
That could cost me everything.
It can snowball and get out of control very quickly. So
yeah,
gotta tamp it down.
Perhaps that's part of it. I would like to also say, these congressional districts. So, I mean, completely unofficial opinion. I don't work for the government. I certainly don't work for the legislature. So this is just my opinion. I've always thought those congressional districts were really drawn a certain way, and it was benefiting Democrats.
Yeah.
Like, one of the districts they want to take away is Van Orden's. I mean, that is a Democrat district that he keeps winning. I don't know how you can gerrymander that thing
anymore.
I mean, it goes... If you look at it on the map, it like stretches across half of Wisconsin because they wanted to get University of Stevens Point, which is in the middle of the state, into the same district as La Crosse. So that is a Democrat seat. There's a reason why Ron Kind was so happy. Ron Kind wanted that drawn that way so he could keep on winning. And now Van Orden's got it and he's winning. I mean, how are you going to change this? I mean, you guys, if you start, trying to water down your safe seats, they might not be so safe as safe as you think,
Yeah. But if Wisconsin succeeds in this regard, I just looked up the split in the House. It's 218 Republican to 215 Democrat. So
okay, so
you could potentially say goodbye to Tom Tiffany and
yeah. Well, they're going after Van Orden and they're going after Brian Stiles. So
okay,
and yeah.
So you get those two, and wow, yeah, you have just a one Republican, seat lead in the House.
Assuming nothing else changes.
And it's not like, and like you said, it's not like Republicans are going to vote for every single piece of legislation that, Trump, proposes.
Yeah.
Because they're not all Trumpers.
Yeah, just
it's obvious.
Yeah. I mean, the big thing is, even if they aren't all voting for Republicans, the reason why you want to be in control of these chambers is because then you get all the committee chairs, and the committee chairs having, investigative authorities. And so they want to pull all that away.
Yeah.
But, all right, so moving on. More federal stuff that's filtering here into Wisconsin. Wisconsin's got its own USAID scandal. This one was written by Dan O'Donnell, and it's essentially about the Section 8 housing program in Milwaukee. It's like amount where it was like $3 million in there.
Yep, $3 million for Section 8.
Yeah, questions about where it went. It didn't actually go to any housing. It just went to make payroll, and then lots of questions and resignations. But, yeah, so this is, the USAID, and this is a convenient way to talk about it. This is just completely blown the lid off of, all Americans know that the government wastes money. Mm-hmm. They probably didn't realize the scope of that fraud, waste, and abuse.
Yeah.
They also knew that there's just something not adding up. How come all these congressmen who make $175,000 a year live in these multi-million-dollar mansions? They're living like
what's going on,
billionaires.
Bernie Sanders? You got 2 homes and a lake house, and you get the Senate salary. Your net worth's like $5 million or something.
Well, he says it's because he keeps writing books about how terrible capitalism is, and they sell. But yeah. There's been a lot of speculation about how are these people making this money? Is it like selling, Hunter Biden, finger paintings, for hundreds of thousands of dollars? Is it, Bill Clinton getting paid, $1 million to give a 5-minute speech? So there's been lots of weird things. But this whole follow the money thing through USAID, which most people have never even heard of before. This wasn't even on anyone's radar.
Yeah.
And suddenly we're saying, wait a minute. Oh, so this congressman is on the board of directors for this nonprofit, which gets $100 million a year from USAID. Okay, things are starting to add up now. Yeah. And so, politicians, the Democrats especially, are just flipping out over this, screaming to high heaven about how awful this is. You're killing people. I should have. I don't know. I didn't save any. I don't think I saved the meme. Oh wait, no, I did. All right, so let's go to the MacIver Twitter feed here real quick. So Tammy Baldwin.
Let's learn about this impending constitutional crisis.
Yeah. So Tammy Baldwin, she was. Let's see. I don't actually want to hear her, so let's make sure that's turned off. So Tammy Baldwin, I spoke with a Wisconsin Head Start worker who told me how POTUS's freeze on their funding left the program in shambles. Workers without jobs and parents without child care. I'm demanding answers from the Trump administration. Well, obviously, the MacIver News Service jumped right in there. Head Start, that's supposed to teach, underprivileged kids how to read. And you've been around for 60 years and none of these underprivileged kids can read. We got a 4% proficiency rate in Milwaukee. So what's this all about? Oh, okay, now we know. This is really just a jobs program and free daycare. So,
yes.
It's one of those things where I never, I'm a free market guy. So I'm a real critic of all government spending, and I don't mean like critic like, oh, it's all got to go. It means like I'm critical of it. I scrutinize it. I really determine if this is a good use of taxpayer money. That's what I mean by I'm critical. And that's also a good trait in being a journalist, where somebody tells you something, you immediately start trying to poke holes in whatever they tell you. That's what a good journalist does.
Yes.
That's why we're so busy here, because there's so much of that going on right now, and most journalists don't do that. But even with that said, I never thought that I would be publicly bashing the Head Start program. It's just one of those things where it's like, I don't, maybe there's something there, maybe there's not. I don't really care. That's kind of like a hornet's nest. I'm not going to throw rocks at it.
Yeah, and it seems like chump change.
Chump change, and it sounds like it's got like an admirable mission, helping underprivileged kids get, a start. And you just kind of, you see it and you forget it. Head Start's got to go. Yep. This is a scam. This is a 60-year scam. Everybody's always been hands off. Oh, no, we can't touch this program. Oh, it's for the kids. And, I'll get criticized if I take anything away from the kids. This isn't for the kids. This is a jobs program for, people that... people in Milwaukee, this is a jobs program.
Yep.
This is free daycare. No, this isn't what the program was sold to us as. It was sold to us as giving kids a head start on their education. It's clearly not doing that. And if it is trying to do that, it's incapable of fulfilling that mission. So we need something else then.
Yeah.
But yeah, so there's my rant on Head Start that I never thought I would ever have to complain about Head Start. But this is a fun one. So I'll retweet things because that's what you do on Twitter. Got a couple terrorists here in their USAID provided tents, so that's great. Okay, we see. And there's been a lot of these reports from the White House on some of the things this money's gone to. And meals for Al-Qaeda terrorists in Syria and all kinds of things. So that's great. I mean, there's always...
here's the thing. We've known that the U.S. has been giving money to Al-Qaeda for decades now.
Exactly.
We just never knew exactly that it was from USAID.
Yeah.
Right? Like we have on the record like $1 billion or something like that from the U.S. going to Hamas alone.
Yeah.
$1 billion. And it's like, well, who's giving them this money? Well, USAID is one of those culprits.
That's right. All right, let's jump over this one. So for Mark Pocan, for Tammy Baldwin, for Gwen Moore, for all these politicians that are screaming to the heavens about, taking this money away from USAID, you're really painting a target on your back for these for the Trump investigators. They're going to know exactly who they should be looking at first.
Yep. Yeah, who would have known that this was such an important program until all of these people just lost their minds? Every single person. So you have all your lefties coming out saying that this is really terrible, people in Africa are going to die, blah, 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 as if anyone really cares about the people in Africa. These people certainly don't. And then who else is, screaming from the top of, every mountain about how terrible this is, but all of the neocon warmongers. Mm-hmm. Bill Kristol is in a tizzy over this. If Bill Kristol's for it, it's no good.
All right. So, I think they realize, too, that it's not going to stop with them exposing and turning off the checking accounts for these programs. They're following this money.
Yeah.
If anything illegal happened, and there was, I mean, no president said, go ahead and give $20 million for transgender, plays overseas. Somebody just took it upon themselves to authorize those amounts. There is all kind, and I've always said, within government, government officials, they can break the law kind of however they want. The one thing you can never do as a government official or employee is personally enrich yourself. You can steal money from one account and put it into a pet project, and you'll just get a little slap on the hand, and that's fine. As soon as you take that money and put it in your own wallet, you're in big trouble.
Yeah.
And this has been institutionalized. Usually the guys that get caught with that, it's like them and a couple people in the department, and they get their small-time scam and then they get caught. This is the whole institution doing it.
Yeah.
There's going to be a lot of people going to jail over this.
Hope so.
And don't think it's stopping with the checkbooks, the checking accounts being turned off. They're going all the way. And when it breaks out, it's not just going to be, it's going to be really hard to draw the narratives that these are political persecutions. They're going to show like Congressman so-and-so with hundreds of millions of dollars in his bank account that came from this account that was never authorized. Mm-hmm. So get ready for it because we're on a roller coaster and we've just left the front of the line. So all right, so we got our USAID. Oh, geez. This is why I should just stick with the PowerPoint, I guess. Milwaukee County leaders call Republican immigration plan dangerous. Oh, wait. I missed one here. We got to stay on the stay on the federal one.
Gwen Moore.
Gwen Moore. Why don't you walk us through this one, Mike?
Let's see. Okay, Gwen Moore is giving advice to illegals and residents of Wisconsin on how to not comply with lawful orders given by ICE in order to prevent deportations of illegal aliens.
Yeah, so Tom Tiffany jumps in and he explains, you probably shouldn't be telling people how to break the law.
Yeah.
And this is another one where look, Trump's on a rampage. It's not just, I'm going to call you out and, blast you on Twitter, and that's going to be the end of it. I mean, they're going all the way on everything.
Yeah.
I mean, these sanctuary cities, they're losing funding. They're going after them. You got the Justice Department directly going to hold public officials accountable. No more of this, I was just taking my official capacity. I got a court order. The courts told me I can't do this anymore. Well, I'm going to do it anyway. Another court order, and just do whatever they want. It's not happening.
Yeah.
You're a public official. You break federal law, they're coming after you with the whole federal justice system. Personally, you're being held accountable. So, yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of Democrats that are really going to regret a lot of these statements. I mean, it's like they're building cases for the Justice Department to come after them.
Yeah, it's like Governor Pritzker. He came out a month, 2 months ago, whatever it was, and said that, the state of Illinois will protect our undocumented workers. And I didn't know this, but apparently referring to someone as undocumented is a euphemism for illegal. I always thought it was incredibly transparent that if you are undocumented, you have no documents that you say that you are legally allowed to be in this country. So when someone says we'll protect our undocumented workers, you're saying you have illegals in your state.
Valuable members of their community. But yeah, I mean, this is, look, they're turning off. I mean, look, they just turned off all the money at USAID. They just fired everybody.
Took
down
the signs, deactivated the website. Yeah.
So I mean, like all these, local government officials that think they're going to play chicken with the Trump administration. Yeah, I mean, this is the next step in this is going to be cutting off these fundings to these local units of government. I mean, the sanctuary cities is one thing, but remember, Trump also signed that executive order last week about DEI programs, about LGBT, grooming in the schools. You're going to have a lot of school districts that are like, we're still going to do Pride Month. We're still going to hang the Pride flag up. Yeah. Look, they all get a lot of federal funding for various things. That's going to be cut off. And then they're going to be crying to their their local residents, you need to pass another referendum, or they'll be demanding that the state legislature increase their funding in the state budget. And I mean, if the Republicans in the state legislature are smart, if property taxpayers in the local communities are smart, they'll say, no, take down that damn pride flag and get your money.
Yeah.
So let me see what our next one is. So Milwaukee County leaders call Republican immigration plan dangerous. So Republicans in the Assembly have introduced a bill that would require sheriffs to cooperate with ICE when they arrest people for various crimes that also turn out to be illegal aliens. So obviously this is something that the Democrats absolutely cannot have. They cannot have local officials working with federal law enforcement to enforce federal laws.
The hypocrisy of the left is that they always want, local control and federalism when it serves them. And they just uphold this double standard.
Yeah.
They're crying about the Constitution. They're crying about you're interfering with, states, ability to do these things. You can't do that. It's like, okay, it doesn't mean anything. You people aren't consistent on this.
So I want to, here's a brief something for for the Republicans out there that are listening. I know some Republicans do listen to this podcast.
Some, yeah.
So the idea of this bill is you want sheriffs to work with federal officials. Sheriffs have a lot of autonomy. They can decide what they're going to arrest people for and what they're not, and who they're going to work with, who they're not. It's a partisan office. There are Republican sheriffs and there are Democrat sheriffs. At the MacIver Institute, we've really been tracking over the years district attorneys, because when Governor Evers first took office, most district attorneys in the state of Wisconsin were Republicans. But for one reason or another, they decided that, you know what, I'm really not in this. I don't like doing this job. I'm going to quit. Well, when a district attorney or a sheriff quits halfway, before their term is over, guess what happens? There's no special election. The governor gets to pick your replacement. So Whereas we once had majority district attorneys in the state being Republican, they're now Democrats because we've had that many Republicans win district attorney races and then quit and let Governor Evers pick their replacements. Sheriffs is a little harder to track. That's not tracked at the state level, so we're trying to compile a more a complete list of how many sheriffs have pulled this. But we've started drawing attention to this, as these pop up, because Governor Evers always puts out a press release that, hey, Sheriff Scott Haynes is retiring from Clark County, so I need some applicants so I can pick his replacement. Well, guess what? Clark County Sheriff Scott Haynes was a Republican. His replacement ain't going to be a Republican. If Republican sheriff were there, he could have decided on his own to work with ICE. Well, Clark County, sorry. You elected a bum who stabbed you in the back.
Yeah.
Let's see. And then we got another one here. This is another one where it's Rusk County. Rusk County, that's a good Republican area. Jeff Wallace. Hey, happy retirement to you, Jeff Wallace. Really glad that you stabbed your voters in the back. Hope you enjoy your retirement because he's going to be replaced with a Democrat who is certainly not going to work with ICE, regardless of what the state law says. So, happy retirement there. All right, next story. Wisconsin lawmakers begin push to raise learning standards in state's public schools. All right. We've talked about it before, but just as a recap, the state superintendent, Jill Underly, last year decided that the standards in Wisconsin were a little too tough. Only, according to those standards, only a third of students in Wisconsin could read or do math at grade level. So she decided to completely shuffle the deck, redo all the criteria, change all the cuts, all the categories. So now it looks more like 50% of the kids in the state are proficient at reading and math. Still absolutely appalling, from my perspective. That's an F.
Yep.
But it also makes it impossible to compare where we're at now as a state, to where we were, 2-3 years ago. I mean, it's essentially restarted the whole thing. Mm-hmm. Republicans want it to go back. If they pass it, Governor Evers might actually sign this one. He doesn't really like Jill Underly. She's not liberal enough for him, so he's looking for lots of ways, any way he can to undermine her before the April 1st election, because he wants a more liberal candidate to win.
Yep.
But yeah, this is something that should be an easy switch. We've already seen some lawmakers claim that on the left say, oh, if you turn it back, they're going to have to give them more funding to do that. Well, if they spent any money to switch it in the first place, that was never authorized by the legislature, so that's a problem. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so Mike, you got any thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I agree. This seems like an easy win. Knowing that Evers doesn't like her is, a very, consoling fact, I guess. But yeah, sounds good. No, there was no reason to change it. There's no reason not to change the way, these scores are assessed. So that's all I got.
All right. Well, our last story, we got Senator Hutton pitches legislation to block future John Doe persecutions. So John Doe is an emotional issue in this state, especially for conservatives, because the Democrats have used it as a tool for their unrestricted political lawfare. They've come after political opponents with this. It was famously done during to people that worked on Walker's campaign or were on his staffs. Turned out people's constitutional rights were violated. The Supreme Court eventually had to step in and said their rights were violated. No, actually, this is a great one. You had, at the time, the administrator for the predecessor of WEC, the Government Accountability Board, Kevin Kennedy, and you had the Milwaukee County District Attorney, John Chisholm. The Supreme Court, after they had run their John Doe investigations on the Walker campaigns and just completely terrorized their targets, the Wisconsin Supreme Court said, hey, you violated these people's constitutional rights, right to assembly, right to free speech, due process, so dropped all the charges against those victims. Kevin Kennedy, John Chisholm got slaps on their wrist. That's how public officials are used to being treated in this country. They can violate a person's constitutional rights with no consequence. John Chisholm, he just retired. You just enjoy your retirement. Oh, you violated all these people's constitutional rights. You made their life a living hell. Now you're good. Enjoy your pension. Again, I'm smiling because that's not how it is anymore.
Yeah.
But yeah, unfortunately, those two got away scot-free. But yeah, they're enjoying their retirement, whatever. So here's another angle from the John Doe persecutions. There was a police officer 5 years ago, Joseph Menza in Wauwatosa. He had a habit of when criminals shot at him or waved guns at him, he shot them. Mm-hmm. So that led to lots of protests and riots. The last one was in 2020, so it fed into all the other riots that were going on at the time. He got cleared. He always got cleared because he was completely he was doing the right thing, following the rules of engagements and following all the laws. So completely squeaky clean on all this stuff. John Chisholm, that rat that I was just complaining about, he actually cleared Joseph Menza. He said, no, we aren't going to prosecute. There's no crime.
Right.
Well, there was a liberal judge in Milwaukee who didn't really, agree with
Didn't
that.
like that.
So under this John Doe process, a judge can say, I think I could convict this guy. So I'm going to appoint my own prosecutor to go after him. Mm-hmm. Hence, and orders a John Doe investigation where these John Doe investigations, I don't even know how. Hopefully these things are just completely thrown out eventually because they're so unconstitutional. The nature of a John Doe violates people's First Amendment and Fourth Amendment rights. But so that's one of the things that Senator Hutton is trying to go after. He wants to make sure that judges can no longer, when a district attorney decides that, there's nothing here, a judge can't just, who's got a political axe to grind, comes in and says, I'm going to do something anyways.
Yeah, makes sense.
So, anyway, well, I think that's all I got for this week. Okay, let's see. Just scrolling through the Twitter feed to make sure we didn't miss anything. Got this wonderful picture. For all those people that say Republicans and conservatives are anti-women, this is a great response to that. Actually, I'll just leave that up. Mike, do you have anything else for this week?
No, that's all I got. It's been so busy and so hard to keep track of we didn't even get to everything that was posted this week.
Yeah.
But we'll have a lot more stuff next week.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
Yeah, it definitely is worthwhile to visit MacIver's website every day because I know there, with think tanks, you never know. Sometimes they just update every few weeks or something. MacIver, it's just every single day, nonstop. We've got the latest news. Ben Yount, he's got a radio show on 11:30 a.m. in Milwaukee. He writes for us nonstop.
Yeah, 2 a day from Ben.
We got Dan O'Donnell, who obviously he's got the late afternoon show in Milwaukee and Madison, and he writes perspectives for us nonstop. We've got Richard Moore as a columnist and researcher who's just producing such great material. This is scholarly research level stuff that, we don't have time or the bandwidth to discuss on this program. That's why I've actually given Mike his own podcast with Richard to talk specifically about policy research stuff, the unregulated podcast. So be sure to...
Yes, we just had our inaugural this week. It was published Monday, our first episode.
Yeah, Tuesday, yeah.
Tuesday.
So be sure to check that out. We're going to try to keep that coming every month, I think, at least. But yeah, so tons happening right now. Still gearing up for the budget. State budget process is kicking off, really going to kick off this month with the governor's address in about 2 weeks. So going to be leaning into that, and it'll really be full speed after that. But look, nobody can keep up with what the Trump administration is doing, and the impacts it's having are just reverberating across the entire country.
Yeah.
Unlike a lot of people in the media and involved in public affairs, hey, this is great. Keep going at it. This is we are smiling here at the MacIver Institute. So. Anyway, be sure to check back next week. We'll have our next edition of the MacIver Report next Friday. So until then, have a good weekend and good luck next week.